Hey, what's going on? Placido here. Today I'm going to talk about slap bass technique. You may have heard it called thump bass. You may have heard this called slap and pop bass or just slapping the bass. There's a lot of names for this. Basically, you're just striking the string with your thumb and you're pulling the string with your pointer finger or your middle finger to create kind of a snapping sound. If you're new to this stuff, this is the video for you. I'm just going to show you a few techniques to get you started. Let's do this. Okay, so the first thing that I recommend when you're getting started with any technique is to listen. Okay, so listen to a lot of players that slap the bass, a lot of styles of music that incorporate slap bass technique. Just immersing yourself into a sound is going to be probably one of the fastest ways you're going to learn a technique. The second thing is you're going to need to figure out how to strike the string with your thumb. Okay, now there's a lot of different approaches to technique, but there's two things that I like to think about when it comes to technique. The first thing is, does it sound good to my ears? And then the second thing is my body hurting? Okay, if my sound is pleasant to my ears, or is the sound that I'm looking for, I already know I'm headed in the right direction. Okay, and then the second thing is if my body is not in pain, I'm not feeling any sort of weird awkwardness or pain from the movement, then I know this is fine. Okay, so you don't have to have your thumb or your body, moving a specific way to do slap bass or any sort of technique. Okay, there is no one way to do it. There's no exact right way to do it. Okay, the only wrong way is the kind that's going to hurt your body and the kind that does not sound good. Okay, so let's talk about the first part of the technique, which is your thumb. We need to figure out how to strike the string. Now, you'll watch a lot of players. There's players that will have their thumb parallel to the string. There's players that will put their thumb in an angle. And then you'll see some players that almost look like their thumb is in an upward angle. Okay? For me, I tried all of these positions, but for me, what worked for me was keeping my thumb parallel. Okay, this is a technique that you're going to be very clumsy with at first, and so I recommend you try it all. Try all the techniques and listen to your body. Find what works for you. But for me, what worked for me was my thumb being parallel to the string. When I tried playing with my thumb in any sort of angle, it sounded great on my E string, but when I started getting to my A string, my D string, for me it was a little bit harder to get a cleaner sound. But let me tell you what I did though. For a while I did play with my thumb almost angled on the string. For me, I had to mute the strings with my little palm here. When I'm hitting my D string, for instance, or my A string, I'm actually muting my E string. Muting my D string. But that worked for a long time for me, but for a while, just by looking at my technique and really listening to my body, what worked for me was a parallel thumb. Okay. The second thing to consider is, are you going to bounce your thumb off the string, or are you going to strike through the string? Okay. There's no right or wrong way. Again, some players will bounce their thumb off the string, like that. For me, that was clumsy for me. I actually like to keep my thumb or strike the string and then go to the next string. Very similar to Victor Wooten, what he does. Okay. But I don't double thump. That's a technique. There was a period in my life where all I wanted to do was double thump, and I double thumped all the time. But for me, it just started. It just felt weird always with my thumbnail. I just didn't like the way that felt to my. So anyway, I don't double thump. I do all single strokes. But I maintained leaving my thumb, striking the string and leaving it on the next string. And that allowed me to get the cleanest sound. Okay, so explore those two things, bouncing or striking through the string. Now, once you got that down, there's a couple things you need to consider. Are you going to strike the string hard, or are you going to strike it, with a light touch? There's a lot of players that do hit the strings very hard. They're really smacking their strings. And you get a certain sound to that. Okay, Flea looks like he's hitting it pretty hard, and I love the sound of it. But then you have players like Victor Wooten, who sometimes is striking it hard, but then there's other times it doesn't even look like he's striking it. Then you have people like Brian Bromberg, who barely looks like he's hitting the strings at all, and it sounds phenomenal. Lately I've been favoring going to a very light touch, and that's something you should explore. But for me, I found that I can get a pretty good sound just with a light touch alone. And you know, one way that I found that helps to get a sound out of your instrument is I'll practice a lot without an amplifier. Really try to get that sound out of your instrument without needing to amplify it. Okay, and once you amplify it, it sounds the same, just a little bit. You know, it's just amplified. It's louder. Okay, so I have a very light touch. I'm not really hitting the strings very hard. So those are a few things when it comes to striking the string with your thumb. Now, when it comes to pulling the string, you can use your middle finger or your pointer finger. For me, my pointer finger is very short compared to my middle finger. I pulled the strings for a very long time using my pointer finger. So I used to slap like this a lot. And this worked very well for me. But I always felt like a weird, like when I pulled a string, I'd always feel like a weird like twist with my finger. I don't know, for me it was just weird. And I don't know if that's because my pointer finger is shorter than my middle finger or the angle that it was pulling the string. So I started recently, I don't know, recently is a few years ago, just started using my middle finger, and that's when my whole hand just started relaxing a lot more. Okay, so listen to your body. You don't have to pull with your pointer finger. You don't have to pull with your middle finger. There's no right or wrong way again. Okay, for me, what works the best is using my middle finger. Okay, once you get that down, there's going to be a motion that you're going to need to figure out. Okay, a lot of slap and pop is an alternation between your thumb and the pops you're pulling. Okay, so you'll see a lot of players talk about using octaves. That's a great exercise. Just getting this comfortable, this motion of slapping and popping, getting that to feel comfortable will take some time. Okay, and then getting that to be at a tone that you like. Now, I recommend taking it one more step further. Instead of just octaves, take your octave and you're just going to drop it down a fifth. Okay, so now you have your finger on your E string. You're still going to keep your other finger on your G string. Okay, I don't really care about what interval this is. When it comes to technique, I'm just looking at this from a physical standpoint right now. And that a lot of times when you're slapping the bass, you're going to be slapping the E string a lot and your G string. Okay, so I recommend doing this a lot. Once you feel comfortable with that, you're going to be that's like 70% of the battle. Okay, so that's when it comes to that's the basic techniques when it comes to slap and pop. Now, a lot of times, if you want to make this also more percussive and start approaching this like a drummer, a lot of times what players will do is they'll mute their pops to kind of create like a snap or like a snare drum sound. The way to do that is a lot of times when you're playing funk or slap bass, you're going to be playing with a flat, or I recommend exploring a flat hands or flat fingers on your fretboard. Okay, I'm just almost like lazy fingers, I think about it. Okay, it's not like classical music where your fingers are really curved and you can like put like a ball or an egg in your hand. I like to leave my hand flat. Okay, this is going to allow me to mute my strings, and that muting gets you that slap or that pop. That's really the basic foundation of slap and pop. Now, there's a few advanced techniques I'm going to show you that hopefully will inspire you to as well. Okay, they're advanced in the sense that you know, I recommend getting the foundational stuff first, but you know, I did this stuff too when I was first beginning. I think what's really important is whenever you're learning something, you got to actually be excited about it and actually enjoy it. So I don't see any harm in learning anything advanced. I mean, sometimes if you're too focused on the advanced stuff and don't get the foundational stuff, I can see where that can be a problem. But look, if you like what you're doing, keep doing it, okay? one cool thing that I saw, man, I saw this one guy do this at a live show one time, was in a groove, he would play these triplets. And you can do a cool triplet. I'm going to show you a cool thing you can do, and that's just by raking your thumb. So, and that's a really cool thing to do, and you're not really doing any effort. So maybe it's advanced, but I think it's almost also beginner in a sense. You're not doing anything, you're just raking your string. Okay, I'm not even caring if it's too even or not. It's kind of like a sound, it's like a roll. And that's a cool sound that you can do. So if you're, I don't know, coming into a song and it's the beginning of a song, that's something cool that you can do. Another thing that you can do is start exploring, you know, alternating your left hand and your right hand. You know, just kind of thinking of it as a drummer, okay? So that's just a couple techniques, a little bit more advanced techniques that can hopefully inspire you to go even deeper with this sound. There's so much that you can do with slap bass. But the first thing is listen. You know, listen to just a lot of players. How do they approach it? Listen to the rhythms that they're using, the tone that they're getting, okay? And try to capture that sound, okay? Immerse yourself in that sound, all right? I hope you got a lot out of this video. If you did, please like my video, subscribe to my channel. I'll see you later.